Good evening and welcome to a program devoted entirely to lefties losing it. Let's start lefties with the neo-Marxist Ken Doll himself, Justin Trudeau, who, if the polls are right, is going to lose in a massive landslide. And what is the Canadian Prime Minister doing as parts of his country fall victim to violent anti-Semitic rioters? Well, he's swapping bracelets with teenagers at a Taylor Swift concert and dancing the night away like some giddy teenager. Oh yes, there he is, dancing without a care in the world. Never mind that his country is in crisis on a number of fronts. He's getting his Swiftie on. And I wasn't kidding about him swapping bracelets with teenagers. Even they were wondering what he was doing there.
What is Justin Trudeau doing here, guys? Hello? Thank you. Do you want a bracelet? Do you want a bracelet? Thank you so much.
Time to listen to this screechy performance from Democrat Jasmine Crockett, who seems desperate to appropriate the suffering of her ancestors. And she seems more than a little ignorant about the history of slavery.
You tell me which white men were dragged out of their homes. You tell me which one of them got dragged all the way across an ocean and told that you are going to go and work. We are going to steal your wives. We are going to rape your wives. That didn't happen. That is oppression. We didn't ask to be here.
Well, Jasmine, as a free woman, you can now be anywhere you want to be, and yet you choose to be in America. But despite the considerable power and privilege you hold, you want to play the victim eternally. And just to educate you, slavery has existed since the dawn of time. From the first civilizations, we're talking 3,500 years BC, and plenty of white men, women and children were taken as slaves, including more than 1 million Europeans stolen and sold as slaves in North Africa. Facts are our friends, yes. Now to comic and TV host Jonathan Van Ness, whose pronouns are he, him, but he also likes she, her and they, them. Seems a little greedy. Here he is on stage talking about how hard it's been since Donald Trump won the election.
Let's just get the elephant out of the room right away. I need to make an apology. My dress is way too long. And after what our country's been through this week, you all deserve to see my unfiltered.
That's what passes for comedy nowadays, folks. It's grim. What's really funny is the unintentional comedy from lefties losing it, including a man we've featured heavily in the past week. Here is election forecaster Professor Alan Lichtman, who got it so wrong and has gone into this unseemly meltdown on multiple programs. He is deluded, folks, and he is clinging to that delusion. Here he claims that Donald Trump ran a terrible campaign, despite the fact that he won in a landslide while spending a fraction of the money that Kamala Harris spent.
So the idea that Trump was this great charismatic figure is absolute nonsense. And again, if you looked at his campaign, it was the worst campaign we've ever seen in the history of the country.
Now, this lefty lady is disturbed to learn that she can no longer use the red heart emoji. Let's pray for her.
Does anybody else feel like the red heart emoji has been totally ruined for them after this week? I did not realize until Wednesday that I have a habit of ending every text, DM, email, etc. with a red heart emoji. And now I feel like a red heart emoji implies MAGA. And so I no longer know how to punctuate my sentences. I guess I'll have to go back to using like an exclamation mark. What emoji are we using now in lieu of the red heart? because the red heart for me is dead, at least for a while.
It's time to check in with the ladies of The View, and today we hear this kernel of truth from Joy Behar. They are haters and they are miserable.
You know what's in the air, Whoopi?
What's
Trumpism. We lost the election. Wait a minute. We lost the election. We're miserable. Half of this country is miserable. And let's just tell the truth. We hate that he won. We hate it. And everybody's uptight and crazy right now.
They are miserable. Yes, we know. We know that. Not much joy on The View set. Now listen here as Joy unloads on a man whose audience is far, far greater than hers, Joe Rogan. She's upset about dragons.
We went from Walter Cronkite, basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple force that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, I guess like dinosaur-y type of animals.
Oh dear. For the record, because you're never going to get straight facts from The View, Joe Rogan doesn't believe there were once dragons that breathe fire, like in the Game of Thrones. He was talking about dragon, dinosaur type of animals that fly, something wildlife biologists have speculated about. But back to The View and their delusions of honesty and accuracy.
But I think that that's why people like our show, because they know that we are checked by ABC News. But
We're checked by everybody.
Yeah, I mean, if we're wrong, we have, the legal note here.
I'm sorry, but Sonny reading out frequent legal notes when people threaten to sue is not the same thing as being accurate. Now to an almighty meltdown from Axios CEO and co-founder Jim Vanderhay. This rant about Elon Musk and X is incredible for its sheer audacity and self-delusion. He really thinks people lost trust in the media because of X or some nefarious force. No, Jim, it was because folks were sick of being lied to by the leftist media.
Elon Musk sits on Twitter every day, or X today, saying like, we are the media, you are the media. My message to Elon Musk is bullshit. You're not the media. What we do, what journalists do, what you did in Mississippi, what Al Jazeera does in the Middle East. Like, being a reporter is hard, really hard. You have to care. You have to do the hard work. You have to get up every single day and say, I want to get to the closest approximation of the truth without any fear, without any favoritism.
He's either lying or he's ignorant. There are no other options at this point. Journalists ignoring the truth and becoming political activists is what has seen trust in the media plummet to record lows. But of course, Jim's rant was applauded by the very worst examples of the leftist media, the lunatic asylum that is MSNBC, the network with a plummeting audience for the lunatic fringe, by the lunatic fringe, and yeah, of course, they loved Jim's speech.
You do it by doing the hard work.
Yeah, come on, slow clap, everybody. Whoa. First of all, I've got to say, extraordinary content. It needed to be said.
Yeah.
It continues to need to be said. When all of the garbage is flying around on social media, lying about reporters, lying about the hard work they do, lying about the hard work editors do, lying about everything up and down.
Joe Scarborough and the network that has done more to damage journalism's name than any other, he's still trying to gaslight the nation. At least while they're playing the victim, they've stopped pushing the Russian collusion hoax. Time to check in now on the leader of the free world. Remember him? Joe Biden, or is it Joe Biden's husband?
I must say, I followed that standard because I had no choice. I'm Joe Biden's husband.
Oh dear, he's not all there, is he? Now to a man identifying as a woman who's wearing a lemon dress and a keffiyeh. I wouldn't suggest doing that in Gaza or the West Bank or any Muslim majority country.
Today, for the first time, I dressed fully feminine in public, in the broad light of day. It was to a luncheon at my work. with the board of directors of the theater company I work for. I wore my lemon dress and my keffiyeh.
And something of a miracle, folks. This is CNN bringing cold, hard facts to their audience. And you know, in airports and hospital waiting rooms around America, there'd be lefties losing it listening to this.
Take a look here. President Trump's transition net approval. You go back to November of 2016. Look at this. It was just at plus 1 point. Just at plus 1 point. That is well below the historical norm. Look at where we are today. Significantly higher, plus 18 points. That's 17 points higher on the presidential transition net approval rating. The bottom line is this. If 8 years ago Americans were lukewarm on Donald Trump, at this particular point, they're giving him much more the benefit of the doubt. A lot more Americans are in love with this transition. What you see 8 years ago, 53% of Americans were scared or concerned, the majority towards the upcoming Trump term. Look at where we are now. The shoe is on the other foot. 53% of Americans are excited or optimistic. It's flip-flop.
Let's start with a special message from Vice President and failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris. Is this message delivered to her voters or is it for herself?
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power that you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did. And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. So don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Where's the joy? Yes, it does feel like she's repeating a mantra to herself in the mirror daily. Now to someone else who needs a good, hard look in the mirror, because everything Sharon Stone spews in this sad little diatribe actually applies to her and her ilk.
My country is in its adolescence. Adolescence is very arrogant. Adolescence thinks it knows everything. Adolescence is naive and ignorant and arrogant. And we are in our ignorant, arrogant adolescence. We haven't seen this before in our country. So Americans who don't travel, who 80% don't have a passport, who are uneducated, are in their extraordinary naivete.
Extraordinary, the deep delusion, the self-delighted arrogance and ignorance of a Hollywood elite who has zero understanding of her own country and countrymen, let alone the world. Even her little stat there about passports was wildly wrong, but the ill-informed, hate-filled rant did not end there.
Those good men must be very aware that a lot of your friends are not good men. And you can't continue to pretend that your friends are good men when they are not good men. And you must be very clear-minded and understand that your friends who are not good men are dangerous, violent men, and you have to keep them away from your daughters, your wives, and your girlfriends.
If only she had the courage to speak out about bad men when Harvey Weinstein was preying upon young women. But then Harvey is a Democrat. He hated Trump. He hates Trump. He even marched with the Pussy Hat Brigade. Can you believe that? Against Donald Trump. And he remained protected. And let's end this Sharon Stone interlude with this ridiculous remark where she compares the real fascism Italy experienced in the past with Trump's election victory.
You know, Italy has seen fascism. Italy has seen these things. You guys, you understand what happens.
Oh dear, someone should tell Sharon who the Italian Prime Minister is right now. It's the Italian Trump, Giorgia Meloni, a centre-right woman who the media decried as a fascist, a far-right extremist and a threat to the country. Sound familiar? She is now among, if not the most popular leader in Europe. Also in Italy is another lefty losing it, and he's a regular in this segment, Alec Baldwin, fresh from an awful Saturday Night Live performance, and he too was bashing his country and his countrymen.
It's a very difficult time in the United States. Americans are very uninformed about reality, what's really going on with climate change, Ukraine, Israel, you name it, all the biggest topics in the world.
Now to CNN, where Scott Jennings, as the token conservative, continues to embarrass the lefty losers.
I heard what you're saying about X. I saw a survey this week. It's now the most ideologically balanced user platform.
Scott,
of any platform.
stop. It's too early. I just sat down. I've only been here for 2 minutes.
Be
You cannot
when
continue
I
to say
after the show, but
you
it's
cannot
true.
say that.
So,
Who's not the case?
So
Who's the source?
what I find, we reported it on this network.
It's not accurate, and you know it.
Okay, I'll let you make your statement.
Yes, Scott, what's your source? What's your source? It's too early for facts. Let's have a look at what his source is, where Scott got those facts and figures from.
Look at this. The party ID among those who regularly use X/Twitter for news. Back in 2022, 65% of those who regularly use Twitter/X for news were Democrats. Just 31% were Republicans. Look at where we are today. Just a completely different picture. Now it's basically split between Democrats at 48%, Republicans at 47%. And what I should note, Mr. Berman, is this new overall makeup matches the overall electorate far better.
Democrats still outnumber Republicans on X, but it's some sort of far-right site. I mean, people who spew that nonsense obviously have zero experience on social media, or they're just dishonest. Take your pick. Now let's check in with a grown man who identifies as a baby wearing a diaper, and he has a disturbing update for us.
Yeah, at work, I'm about to drop off an order, and my diaper's getting kind of full right now, so I might need to change really soon, but it is very discreet. Check out my last video for the discreet outfits video, but my diaper is getting a little full right now.
Tonight we'll be featuring Australian lefties losing it. Yes, we have our own supply here. Do not send your enraged, TDS-afflicted lefties to our shores, America. Try New Zealand. But first, sometimes on this segment, I'm confronted with levels of craziness, levels of lefty ludicrousness that are just frankly hard to digest. I'm left thinking, is this real or is it satire? Sadly, it's almost always real.
No, you aren't supporting, investing, or organizing your community to uplift the most marginalized if you're still not masking. Our liberation has always been connected. The continued rise of fascism is directly connected to Palestine, Sudan, Congo, losing reproductive rights, anti-trans violence, xenophobia, and yes, COVID.
The rise of fascism is connected to Palestine and trans violence and masking. We've entered levels of intersectional madness previously thought impossible, and she's not done yet.
Being okay with disabled and immunocompromised folks dying for your convenience is not very progressive of you, especially when we know repeat infections can cause lifelong damage for all of us. If you are unable to handle the inconvenience of wearing a mask to protect your community, how much are you really willing to personally invest in the liberation of marginalized people? That being said, it's never too late to start masking again and taking more precautions.
There you go. It's simple. If you don't wear a mask, you're basically a fascist and a killer. You know, I bet I can guess who that gal's favourite TV network is. It's got to be MSNBC, where the hosts are as crazy as the ever-shrinking audience. Here, Rachel Maddow defames the man selected by President Trump to be the next director of the NIH, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya. This is what Maddow had to say about a superbly qualified, courageous and principled man who is currently a professor at Stanford Medical School.
Trump's top candidate endorsed herd immunity as the best way to address the COVID pandemic. Just a fancy way of saying, let's get everybody sick and see what happens. Cull the weak, cull the elderly.
What a disgusting lie from a woman who should know better. For the record, Dr. Bhattacharya advocated for focused protection of the elderly and vulnerable. But then we're used to Rachel Maddow lying, fibbing about everything from the Russian collusion hoax to the COVID jabs. Remember this?
Now we know that the vaccines work well enough that the virus stops with every vaccinated person. A vaccinated person gets exposed to the virus. The virus does not infect them. The virus cannot then use that person to go anywhere else. It cannot use a vaccinated person as a host to go get more people.
Now to veteran Democrat strategist James Carville, who is sick and tired of young progressive upstarts behind Kamala's campaign. And this meltdown is, I've got to say, superb fun. Enjoy.
Not only am I not interested in your opinion, I'm not even going to call you by your name. You're 23 years old. I don't really give a what you think. And let me tell you another huge error this made, is when people said campaigns need to reflect progressive values. No, they don't. No, they don't.
I like nothing more than watching lefties turn on each other, and Carville is in rare form here.
If I were running a 2028 campaign and I had some little snot-nosed 23-year-old saying, I'm going to resign if you don't do this, not only would I fire that on the spot, I would find out who hired them and fire that person on the spot. I'm really not interested in your uninformed, stupid jack opinion.
We mustn't forget that old school Democrats can be just as irrational, mean-spirited and bigoted as the new left. Watch here as Kerry Kennedy essentially disowns her own brother. This is gross.
I'm outraged and disgusted by my brother's gaudy and obscene embrace of Donald Trump. And I completely disavow and separate and dissociate myself from Robert Kennedy Jr. in this flagrant and inexplicable effort to desecrate and trample and set fire to my father's memory.
Now to women so enraged by democracy that they're screaming, quite literally, at the ocean. Now to some Australian content. Here is a woman protesting outside a synagogue in Melbourne, holding a sign saying, "Nothing is more anti-Semitic than Zionism," and listen to her reasoning here. This is incredible.
Why are you talking about anti-Semitism when you're not Jewish?
Because I've been impacted by anti-Semitism.
Are you a Jew?
No, people think I am, and I've been called a Jew and had someone threaten to kick my ass because they thought I was Jewish, so it's impacted me as well. We are not anti-Semitic. That's a lie.
So you've been affected by anti-Semitism because people mistaked you as a Jew?
Correct. Yeah.
Are you listening to yourself?
Yes.
No, you're not listening to yourself. You are harassed because people think you're a Jew and you think it's a fine idea to protest outside a synagogue and hold a sign saying Zionism is anti-Semitic. Can I suggest you start by looking up what Zionism actually means? Now to the Australian Parliament, and this outburst from Senator Fatima Payman is something else. She launched a vicious, hate-filled diatribe against Conservative One Nation Senator Pauline Hanson. Watch here as Senator Ralph Babet tries to maintain his composure. This is the Australian Senate, folks.
She says, we're bringing in people from South Africa at the moment. There's a huge amount coming into Australia who have disease. They've got AIDS. If that is not racist, what is it? Oh, it's not racist. Oh, somebody bring the dictionary because Senator Hanson does not know the definition of racism. The fact that you would say just weeks ago to Senator Faruqi, piss off back to Pakistan, you're not just vindictive, mean, nasty, you bring disgrace to the human race. No dignity whatsoever as a senator.
Quite a disgusting display there from Senator Payman, frankly gross. And let's end with one more local lefty losing it. Here's the chair of the ABC, the public broadcaster that receives more than $1 billion of your money every single year to churn out leftist crap. Yesterday, the chair of the ABC was asked about the popularity of Joe Rogan. After admitting he is not familiar with Rogan's work, he launches into an unhinged, ignorant rant.
I am not a consumer or enthusiast about Mr. Rogan and his work.
Shocking.
I am not one of the 3 billion, and I'm unlikely to be 3 billion and one anytime soon. I think people like Mr. Rogan prey on people's vulnerabilities. They prey on fear. They prey on anxiety. They prey on all of the elements that contribute to uncertainty in society, and they entrepreneur fantasy outcomes and conspiracy outcomes as being a normal part of social narrative. I personally find it deeply repulsive, and to think that someone has such remarkable power in the United States is something that I look at in disbelief. I'm also absolutely in dismay that this can be a source of public entertainment when it's really treating the public as plunder for purposes that are really quite malevolent.
And that's it from me. I'll see you Sunday morning for Outsiders.